Severance is like the 2016 Warriors, or McDonald's Sprite, or Avengers Endgame on opening night. How many other ways can I describe that Severance is perfect? This show is so hard to describe at how good it is. It feels like it is just working on another completely different level compared to every show around it. I've made my fair share of videos saying The Bear's the best TV show or Daredevil's the best superhero show, and all of that is true. But Severance isn't just a good TV show or the best show on TV right now, it's one of those shows that defines a decade. The 2000s had The Wire and The Sopranos. The 2010s had Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones for better or for worse. And the 2020s, I think you got Squid Game as one of the most iconic, and Severance. Severance has to be one of the best shows I've ever seen because it's an explosion of creativity that actually works, unlike some other Apple TV Plus shows. Remember that show C with Jason Momoa? Did anyone see that show? I hate myself. But Apple's failure to really get a hit TV show outside of that Cracker Run in a football program shows how hard good television is to come by. Making a movie is hard enough. Getting everything to line up so you have a 2-hour story that just ends up barely working is a huge task that can cost up to $320 million and you still can't do it right. But planning 20 hours worth of story and making sure not a single second falls flat, that is one of the hardest things to do ever, just in art. Even the best shows that have ever been made, you can see where the seams of the show are. The illusion breaks for a moment, and then boom, we're taken out. It's fine, it's human. But then you watch Severance and you're like, I don't know, this might just be the best show ever made, I don't know. Severance doesn't falter like other shows. It's working on an insane level of detail. The writing is only elevated by the production design and direction, which is allowed to shine by these insane performances by all of these actors. As Morgan Freeman said on Savage Mode 2, when you get two great creatives together, their powers don't add, they somehow multiply. Severance is a bunch of brilliant people somehow making something unfathomable compared to the sum of its parts. Everyone involved with this show has taken their talents and cashed in. And man, did they create something special. So let's talk about why Severance is the show of the decade. Severance is a show about a group of people that work at Lumen, a company that does creepy things. Some workers at Lumen do a procedure called severance where they can't remember a single thing about their lives when they clock in at the severed floor at work, which also means that their outie, the person outside of the building, can't remember a single thing that happened in the building when they clock in. And that premise hooks us instantly. It's one of the best premises I've ever heard for a TV show. That premise sells you on the idea of the show when you click on episode 1. But that brilliant setup and intrigue can only get us so far in the story. Ask Lost. Why do we stay in this world for over 20 hours? And that is because of the characters. The characters are what give this incredible, unique, and bizarre world meaning. Our main protagonist is Mark S. He's played by Adam Scott, and he's helping out a new employee, Heliar, who's played by Britt Lauer, join their new team that helps them at macro data refinement. The other two cast members are Irving B. and Dylan G., both played respectively by John Turturro and Zach Cherry, and they're all employed and looked after by the very creepy Mr. Milchek, played expertly by Tremel Tillman. And this cubicle setup of our four main characters is why this show works so well. What this show does better than any other show is how the characters interact and their dynamics of their relationship due to the individual journeys that they are all going on in the severed floor. Every character gets development and their individual moment per episode. No character ever feels like they're getting lost in the shuffle in the ever-growing and complex plot, but the show goes into God mode when the characters end up interacting with themselves. And you might be asking, how are they talking to themselves? Are the voices growing louder? And kind of. Let's talk about the overarching storyline and how it interacts with the characters. The overarching narrative of the show is the four members of the severed floor trying to figure out what is happening down there and eventually deciding how they can see what's outside of this floor. That seems impossible though because of their outies. When they leave the severed floor, they revert to their outside self. This creates an insane tension between not only our four main characters, but also an antagonistic relationship with the four outside members of themselves as threats are made from both sides at each other. This leads to some of the most interesting conversations and storylines and character development we've ever seen in television, especially with how Season 2 blurs the line between the characters even more. You now have the four main actors playing two separate characters, and each one of them nails it. All 8 characters feel individually different, and the tension and suspense that comes from all of them trying to achieve their own separate goals in conflict and tandem with each other is the heart of the show. And all that intrigue and drama wouldn't be created if it wasn't for the world around them. When you're born into this severed floor, it's this horrifying realization that you're basically stuck in a prison that you can't escape. This is a modern labyrinth that these characters have to look through and explore and find their way through with these people that they just spawned in with. And that's what makes everything they do in this show so interesting. Everything in this world opposes these characters and their goal to leave this floor or even understand it. So every time a character achieves something, it feels like a gargantuan effort to make a single lick of progress without Mr. Milchek, Miss Cobell, or Miss Wong stepping in. Now that slow giving out of information throughout the show is not something that everyone is going to love. And to those people that think it's too slow and boring, real quick, I put up a Subway Surfer on the side of the video, and also your bedtime is at 8:30. If the babysitter doesn't get you in bed by then, I will be angry. We know a show can't survive off of bad writing. Well, I am a surgeon! But we do know that a show can survive off of good writing and bad direction. So does this show have bad direction? No. Severance has some of the best direction I've ever seen in a modern TV show. The directors of Severance have created one of the most unique visual styles for a show that I've ever seen. When you hear that this entire show takes place in an office, it sounds like a nightmare for this to be a visually compelling show. But the big brains over at the Severance production studio figured it out. From the camera work, to the production design, to the lighting that will thematically change showing what is happening in a scene, to the editing and the sound design of the innies and outies switching, oh my gosh. This might be the most visually interesting and audibly interesting show that I have seen in the last few years. Nothing is like it. And I think that's actually the biggest problem this show faces. The biggest comparison and struggle Severance Season 2 is facing was itself. Season 1 of Severance in my book was a masterpiece, with the greatest finale I think I'd ever seen for a first season. No show had done what Severance had done on TV, and then when you're coming back for a second season, everyone's just going to end up comparing you to what you did before. So did they succeed? Well, I'd say they succeeded as well as Cold Harbor succeeded. Season 2 is phenomenal, with one of the best finales for a season that we have ever seen. The whole progression of characters and the betrayals and confusions that come with now having the other 4 outies play much bigger roles was such a nice, fantastic depth and wrinkle added to the show. What this second season did was really expand the scope of the show, and at times though that does lead to a lack of momentum due to the characters' goals of Season 2 being a little less clear than the very motivated singular goal of every character in Season 1. That though isn't due to a lack of focus, rather them going for a larger scope and now integrating more characters into the story, literally. Season 2 of Severance is near perfect. Every show wished they had a season as good as Severance Season 2. This season feels like such its own thing with a step up in production style and direction and quality, and there's also a clear finish line in the story that they're moving towards, and that is something we don't always feel with second seasons of shows. Severance is now a warm-blooded machine cooking on all cylinders. Every actor is dialed in, the direction has never been better, the writing is peak, it's so peak, and the production budget has also seemed to gone up, so y'all can thank me later. Severance is that show. It's so good, it saved the reputation of a streaming service that was genuinely out here promoting that they had every episode of Fraggle Rock. Severance is the LeBron of television. I think it peaked, and then it just keeps going forever, and it's still amazing. Remember this tweet? That is Severance. Every year we go, man, what a finale. I hope it gets picked up for another season, but also the season was so good, it's fine if it could have ended there. But for once, I feel like we're in the good timeline because the show got picked up for Season 3. This isn't Firefly getting canceled. This isn't like when Daredevil got canceled when the show was peaking. This is one of those once-in-a-lifetime shows. This is one of those Breaking Bad shows that you get once every 10 years. A show that has a blank check behind it and a bunch of creatives that still have so much more story to tell and this burning fuel in them to make the show better with each and every episode. This is one of those shows that we're going to be telling our kids about. You just had to be there, because watching the Severance finale on Thursday night, man, there was nothing else really like it. And you want to know why that is? It's because Severance is the show of the decade. Now, before you guys all head out, I was going to say a little thing at the end here because I was going to say this was the best finale I'd ever seen for Season 2, but also, I can't lie to myself, I did watch Lego Ninjago's Season 2 finale as it aired on a Saturday morning, and sorry Severance, you might be the show of the decade, but Ninjago just might be that show of all time. Ball up top, Lloyd.
I have come